Little girl knocked and said, "They took my mama, she will die." Mafia boss shocked them all. A little girl, shaking and brave, begs the most feared man in the city to save her mom. He does the unthinkable. He stops a war to help a child. But when he finds the captive mother, the night explodes into bullets, lies, and a missing enemy with a limp. Back at his fortress, danger closes in. A traitor may be inside his own house. A fake video is about to ruin the only woman he can't ignore. And the child carries a secret that could tear his kingdom apart. If he protects them, he risks everything. If he lets go, they die. So who set this trap? What truth is the girl hiding, and will the coldest man alive choose his crown or his family? The crystal glasses clinked as rain pelted against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Dario's penthouse. Lightning flashed, casting stark shadows across the mahogany table where his lieutenants sat frozen, their toasts interrupted by the unexpected arrival. Dario studied the little girl before him, noting how her small shoulders trembled beneath his oversized jacket. Despite her fear, her chin remained lifted, determination blazing in eyes too old for her young face. Her fingers clutched the lanyard like a lifeline, the name Saravina Vale clearly visible beneath smudges of dirt. "Tell me everything you remember, Piccola," Dario said softly, maintaining eye contact while gesturing for his security chief to secure the perimeter. "Every detail matters." Behind him, Enzo shifted in his chair, wine glass dangling carelessly between his fingers. "Boss, the Kazakov situation?" "Can wait." Dario's voice cut through the air like steel, though his expression remained gentle as he focused on Lena. "Continue, little one." "They had big guns," Lena whispered, her free hand twisting the fabric of Dario's jacket. "Mama was working late at her office, like always. They came in while she was typing." Her voice caught. "She told me to run, to hide under her desk, but I saw—" Tears spilled down her cheeks, cutting clean trails through the soot. "You're very brave," Dario assured her, producing a handkerchief from his pocket. "What else do you remember about the warehouse?" "It smelled like trucks and fish." Lena's nose wrinkled. "There was this big door that made noise when they opened it. Like this," she demonstrated with a squeaking sound. "And bells. Big ones, from the church nearby. They rang 3 times while I was hiding." Dario's mind mapped the industrial district, overlaying known territories with the details she provided. The St. Nicholas Orthodox Church was the only one in that sector with bells that rang on the hour. "The sign outside," he prompted. "The stag. What color was it?" "Red, but some parts didn't light up right. It kept going dark and then bright again, like Christmas lights when they're broken." Around the table, his men were already mobilizing. Phones appeared, coordinates were shared, and weapons were checked with practiced efficiency. Only Enzo remained seated, swirling his wine with affected nonchalance. "This journalist," Enzo drawled. "She's the one who's been sniffing around the docks, yes? Perhaps this is a message we should respect." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Dario's head turned slowly toward his consigliere, his expression unchanged, but something deadly flickering in his eyes. "A message," he repeated softly. "Involving a child?" Lena pressed closer to Dario's side, her small hand finding his larger one with instinctive trust. The contrast was striking, her tiny fingers against his battle-scarred knuckles, innocence seeking shelter from a man known for dealing death. "Mama says I'm good at remembering things," Lena offered, pulling attention back to herself. "The bad men, they talked funny. One had a tiger on his hand here." She pointed to her forearm. "And another was missing part of his ear." Dario's jaw tightened. He recognized the description. Kazakov's cleanup crew, the ones called in for permanent solutions. The clock was already ticking. "Antonio," he commanded, and his security chief stepped forward. "I want every camera feed within 5 blocks of St. Nicholas. Track vehicle movements from the past 3 hours. Marco, coordinate with our people at the docks. If anyone saw anything unusual, I want to know." His orders continued, precise and measured, while his thumb absently rubbed soothing circles on Lena's hand. The room erupted into controlled chaos. Men moved with purpose, phones buzzed with incoming intelligence, and rain continued its steady assault on the windows. Through it all, Dario remained a calm center, his focus split between organizing the rescue and ensuring Lena felt secure. "You need a doctor?" he asked her quietly, noting how she favored her right ankle. Lena shook her head. "Just twisted it climbing down. Mama taught me how to tell if something's really hurt or just scared." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. She says I'm tough like her. Your mama sounds very wise. Dario's expression softened marginally. And yes, you are quite tough indeed. From the corner, Enzo watched the interaction with hooded eyes, his perfectly manicured fingers drumming against the table's surface. The sound was lost beneath the storm and activity, but his displeasure radiated like a physical force. Boss, a lieutenant called. We've got movement on the docks. 3 vehicles matching the description, heading east on Kent Avenue. Time to go hunting, Dario replied, his voice carrying that peculiar gentleness that preceded his most lethal moments. He turned back to Lena, kneeling once more to meet her eyes. I need you to stay here with Mrs. Romano, my housekeeper. She'll get you cleaned up and somewhere safe to rest. Can you do that for me? Lena's grip tightened on his hand. You'll bring Mama back? You have my word. The promise carried the weight of iron and blood. And I never break my word. The Range Rover's leather interior cocooned Dario from the storm, but his mind churned like the clouds above. His fingers traced routes on the tablet's map while his team's check-ins crackled through encrypted channels. Red pillars, stag sign, church bells. Each detail from Lena clicked into place like tumblers in a lock. Cross-reference completed, boss, his tech specialist reported from the back seat. The Red Heart's neon hasn't been maintained in months. Matches the girl's description of the flickering. Dario nodded, zooming in on the warehouse district. St. Brigid's bells reach 6 blocks. Narrows our search radius. His voice remained steady, but his grip on the tablet tightened. Team 2, sweep the north quadrant. Team 3, south, look for diesel tracks, fresh tire marks. Inside the warehouse, Sarah's wrists burned against the zip ties. The chair's metal back bit into her spine, but she kept her posture rigid, refusing to show weakness. Viktor Sokolov's cologne, expensive, cloying, filled her nose as he leaned close. Your source list, Ms. Vale. His accent wrapped around the words like barbed wire. Names, contacts, evidence locations, simple transaction. Sarah's heart hammered, but her voice stayed level. There's nothing simple about trafficking children, Mr. Sokolov. His backhand was swift, practiced. She tasted copper but didn't flinch. Instead, she counted. 3 guards by the main door, rotating every 15 minutes. 1 by the office stairs. The rolling doors squeak marked deliveries every 8 minutes. Brave, Viktor mocked, but stupid. You have a daughter, yes? Pretty thing. Smart like her mother. Ice filled Sarah's veins. If you touch her, then cooperate. He produced a phone, showing her its blank screen. 1 call changes everything. Thunder cracked outside, almost masking the first flashbang. Almost. Victor's head snapped up as white light flooded the space. Shouts in multiple languages merged with the chaos of boots on concrete. Through the disorientation, Sarah registered movement, fluid, precise. A figure in black dispatched the guard near her with terrifying efficiency. Another guard raised his weapon toward her. The figure pivoted, and suddenly Dario Moretti stood between her and the bullet's path, his own shot finding its mark with surgical accuracy. Sarah knew him by reputation, the Don who ruled the West Side docks, whose name made hardened criminals pause. She'd investigated his operations, tracked his investments, but seeing him in action was different. He moved like violence given form, yet his touch was surprisingly gentle as he cut her bonds. Ms. Vale, his voice carried over the controlled chaos. Can you walk? She started to nod, then her legs betrayed her. The adrenaline crash hit hard, making the room tilt. Strong arms caught her before she could fall. Through the haze, she noted absurd details. His cologne, subtle, cedar. The perfect knife edge of his suit pants. The way he shielded her body with his own as they moved toward the exit. The drizzle outside felt like needles on her skin. Dario lifted her when her knees buckled again, and she was too exhausted to protest. Over his shoulder, she glimpsed a second SUV, and through its tinted window, Lena's face, safe, whole. Relief made her dizzy. Mama! Lena's voice carried through the crack in the window. Stay inside, little one, a woman's voice instructed gently. Your mother will be right there. Movement in Sarah's peripheral vision, Viktor, limping through a side door, supporting himself against the wall. Their eyes met briefly. His held a promise of future violence. Dario's posture shifted subtly, noting the escape route, cataloging the injury. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Dario's team moved with practiced precision, dispersing through pre-planned routes. No evidence left behind, no traces to follow. The SUV's door opened, and Sarah found herself settled onto heated leather seats. 3 minutes to intercept, the driver reported. Take the north route, Dario commanded. Ms. Romano, status on our guest. Secure in the panic room, sir. Doctors checked her ankle, minor sprain only. Sarah's head spun with questions, but exhaustion dragged at her limbs. The last thing she registered was Dario's voice, low and certain. You're both under protection now. Rest. Their convoy merged seamlessly into traffic as red and blue lights painted the warehouse district behind them. 3 black vehicles, identical to dozens on Manhattan streets. Nothing to draw attention, nothing to remember. In the warehouse, evidence of the firefight disappeared under efficient hands. Shell casings vanished. Blood was cleaned. By the time NYPD breached the premises, they found only empty space and lingering cordite in the air. Dario watched the scene shrink in his side mirror, his expression unreadable. One hand rested on his phone, where messages from his network already tracked Victor's exit route. The other remained near his weapon, a habit born of experience. The city lights blurred past as they headed toward his secure location. In the middle vehicle, Lena pressed her hand against the window, watching for her mother's car ahead. In the lead vehicle, Sarah finally surrendered to exhaustion, slumping against the leather seat. 3 vehicles, moving like shadows through the rain. Behind them, sirens faded into the urban symphony of a Tuesday night in Manhattan. Ahead, safe houses and medical teams waited, pieces already in motion on Dario's unseen chessboard. The storm continued its assault on the city, washing away traces of the night's violence. Thunder rolled overhead, masking the sound of Dario's empire, shifting its considerable weight to accommodate 2 unexpected variables: a journalist who dared to expose the darkness, and a child who knocked on a devil's door asking for help. The steady hum of climate control pulled Sarah from unconsciousness. Her eyes fluttered open to unfamiliar luxury: cream walls, plush carpet, and floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Manhattan's glittering skyline. A cashmere blanket cocooned her, though she didn't remember getting into the bed. Lena was curled in a nearby armchair, drowsy but fighting sleep. She clutched Dario's suit jacket like a security blanket, her small fingers tracing the expensive fabric. Relief flooded Sarah's system at the sight of her daughter safe and whole. Movement at the door drew her attention. Dario stood there, changed into fresh clothes that probably cost more than her monthly rent. But there, a splash of rust-colored blood on one French cuff. The evidence of violence jarred against the suite's peaceful atmosphere. "The building is secure," he said without preamble, his voice low and controlled. "But Victor's crew will retaliate. They're not known for accepting failure gracefully." Fear clawed up Sarah's throat. She swung her legs off the bed, ignoring the protest of sore muscles. "Lena, honey, we're leaving." "Ms. Vale," Dario started, but Sarah was already moving, gathering their meager belongings. Her journalist's instincts screamed about trading one danger for another. She'd investigated Dario Moretti enough to know his reputation wasn't built on mercy. Lena stirred, blinking owlishly. "Mama?" "Come on, baby," Sarah held out her hand. To her surprise, Lena hesitated, looking between her and Dario with uncertainty. The hallway outside was silent and pristine, with subtle security cameras tracking their movement. Sarah jabbed the elevator button, swiping the keycard left on her nightstand. Nothing happened. She tried again. The panel remained stubbornly dark. A man materialized from the shadows, broad-shouldered, with vigilant eyes and a military bearing. His stance was respectful, but unmovable as he blocked their path to the stairs. "Ms. Vale," he said quietly. "I'm Rossi. Please return to your suite." Footsteps behind her, measured, deliberate. Dario's presence filled the space without effort. "Leave now and they take you again before dawn," he said. "Victor's men are already watching the streets. Your apartment, your office." Sarah's hands clenched. "So we trade one cage for another?" "I offer protection, not imprisonment." Dario's tone remained even. "But it comes with terms. No unsecured phones, no external contact without clearance. You stay until the threat is neutralized." "And my work? The story?" Sarah turned to face him fully. "The evidence I gathered about Victor's trafficking operation." Something flickered in Dario's eyes. Respect, maybe, or calculation. "Your drive is safe, but publication now would sign your death warrant." "I won't be silenced forever," Sarah countered. "These girls deserve justice." "Mama?" Lena's small voice cut through the tension. She stood in the doorway, still holding Dario's jacket. "Can we stay? Just for tonight?" Sarah's resolve wavered, the memory of rope against her wrists, Victor's cold eyes, the sound of that rolling door. It all pressed against her mind. "I'll help map Victor's network," she said finally. "Every connection, every safe house I've traced. But I'm not your asset, Mr. Moretti, and I won't teach my daughter that truth should bow to threats." Dario inclined his head slightly. "Acceptable terms, for now." "Can you read?" Lena asked suddenly, addressing Dario. "I can't sleep without a story, and the scary man might come back." Sarah watched in fascination as something shifted in Dario's carefully controlled expression. He glanced at the book in Lena's hands, a worn copy of Pinocchio she must have found in the suite. "Please," Lena added, and Sarah recognized the tone that could melt the sternest teacher's heart. Dario's hesitation was barely noticeable. He moved with the same fluid grace that had marked his fighting, but now it seemed almost uncertain. He settled into the armchair, accepting the book with hands that commanded empires. "In Italian," he said softly, opening to the first page, "as my mother read it." His voice transformed, becoming something rich and melodic as he read about a puppet who yearned to be real. Lena curled closer, eyes heavy but attentive. Sarah leaned against the doorframe, watching this improbable scene unfold. Then came the passage about lies costing souls, about the weight of truth and consequence. Dario's hands trembled slightly, though his voice remained steady. For a moment, Sarah glimpsed something raw beneath his composed exterior, some old wound that still bled. Lena's breathing deepened into sleep. Dario closed the book carefully, his movements precise again. But when he looked up, meeting Sarah's gaze, something vulnerable lingered in his expression. "Thank you," Sarah murmured, and hated how sincere the words felt. Hated that this dangerous man could be gentle with her daughter. Hated that his protection felt like salvation instead of threat. Rossi appeared silently to carry Lena to bed. Dario stood, adjusting his cuffs, a gesture that didn't quite hide the bloodstain. Outside, the city lights sparkled like nothing had changed, like there weren't monsters waiting in the shadows. Sarah's phone sat dark and useless on the nightstand. Her evidence drive was somewhere in this fortress of a building, and a man who dealt in death and power had just read bedtime stories to her daughter. The suite security system hummed quietly, a reminder of their gilded cage. But when Sarah looked at Lena's peaceful face, she couldn't regret their temporary sanctuary, not with Victor's promise of violence still fresh in her mind. Dario moved to leave, his steps silent on the plush carpet. The businessman's mask was back in place, but Sarah had seen beneath it now, had witnessed the tremor in those deadly hands as they held a children's book, had heard tenderness in a voice that could order executions. The Manhattan sunrise painted golden streaks across Dario's penthouse kitchen. Sarah's fingers traced the sleek chrome of the coffee maker, searching for familiar comfort in its routine. The machine hummed to life, filling the air with rich aroma, a small rebellion against the chaos of the past 24 hours. Her reflection fractured across the polished surfaces, disheveled hair, shadows under her eyes, determination in the set of her jaw. She'd spent half the night memorizing the floor plan, counting guards, tracking patrol patterns. There had to be a way out that didn't end with Victor's men waiting. The soft brush of expensive wool against marble made her spine stiffen. Dario entered like he owned the silence, which she supposed he did. He'd shed his jacket, crisp white shirt sleeves rolled to expose muscled forearms. One held a leather portfolio. "You're up early," he said, voice morning rough. "Couldn't sleep in a stranger's fortress." She poured 2 cups without asking, sliding one across the island. "But since we're both here, let's talk strategy." His eyebrow lifted at her directness. Good. Let him see she wasn't some scared witness to coddle. "I have maps of the warehouse district," he said, opening the portfolio. "Show me what you know about Victor's operation." Sarah leaned over the papers, careful to maintain distance, despite the magnetic pull of his presence. "The main pipeline runs through these 3 blocks. Girls come in through the port, then disperse to these safe houses." Her finger traced the route. "Victor supervises transfers personally on Thursdays." "Thorough research." Respect colored his tone. "My street intel confirms most of this. But there's a secondary route you missed." Their hands brushed as he indicated an alley network. Heat sparked between them, dangerous and unwanted. Sarah withdrew, clutching her coffee like armor. "That scar," she said, nodding to the pale line across his forearm. "Looks old." Something darkened in his eyes. "My father's lesson. I was 16, first time ordering a hit." I hesitated. His jaw tightened. He made sure I understood that mercy was weakness. The confession hung between them, heavy with unspoken pain. Sarah saw past the Don's mask to the wounded boy who'd learned love through violence. It made him more dangerous, this capacity for depth beneath the control. "Your father was wrong," she said quietly. "Mercy isn't weakness, it's courage." Their eyes met. The air crackled with something beyond attraction, recognition, maybe, understanding. Then Dario's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Sarah waited until he stepped away to take a call, then pulled out the sanitized phone he'd provided. Her fingers shook slightly as she dialed, heart pounding. "Archives," a familiar voice answered. "Ava, it's me. About those photos you wanted to archive." "Hang up!" Dario's command cut through the air. He held up another phone, her call mirrored on its screen. "Now." Sarah's hand clenched around the phone. "She's trusted. If you signal anyone, do it through me," he said, voice low and final. "Or you'll paint a target on them. Victor's men are monitoring all channels." "You're monitoring them too, apparently." She ended the call, bitter taste in her mouth. "To keep you alive." He moved closer, presence overwhelming. "Give me the contact's initials. I'll verify they're clean before Victor's people trace the call." "AM." Sarah forced the letters out. "But I need to meet her. She has access to files that could help map the network." Dario studied her, calculating risks. "Supervised contact only. My team sweeps first." By late afternoon, Sarah had arranged a meeting near the service entrance. Quick, simple, just long enough to pass critical information. She checked on Lena, still absorbed in a movie marathon with Rossi's surprisingly patient supervision. "Hey, Butterfly." Sarah tugged her daughter's braid gently. "Tonight we fix this, okay?" "Promise." Lena's eyes held too much knowledge for 8 years. "Promise." Sarah kissed her forehead, ignoring the weight of watching cameras. One LED blinked steadily in the corner, recording everything. She turned away, missing the silent warning. The kitchen still smelled of morning coffee. Sarah spread her trafficking route maps across the counter, adding detail to make the wait productive. But her mind kept drifting to that scar on Dario's arm, to the way his voice softened, reading to Lena, to the dangerous pull between protection and imprisonment. Her phone sat silent, sanitized of all contacts except the ones Dario approved. The city sprawled beyond the windows, deceptively peaceful. Somewhere out there, Victor's men watched and waited. Somewhere, Ava would be preparing for their meeting, unaware of the forces circling this tower of glass and steel. Sarah checked her watch. 3 hours until the meet. She traced the escape routes she'd memorized, the backup plans, the contingencies. Everything had to work perfectly. She couldn't afford another capture, another moment of Victor's cold eyes asking about her sources. The sound of Lena's laughter drifted from the other room. Bright, unguarded. It twisted something in Sarah's chest. Her daughter deserved more than this life of looking over shoulders, of trading one danger for another. She touched the spot where rope had burned her wrists, remembering Dario's gentle hands cutting her free. Enemy or ally, his protection came with its own price. But as she stood in his kitchen, surrounded by evidence of violence and luxury, she couldn't deny the pull toward something more complicated than either. The service corridor light flickered, casting uneven shadows across the industrial carpet. Sarah checked her watch. 7:02 p.m. The flash drive felt heavy in her pocket, loaded with everything she'd pieced together about Victor's operation. Just a quick handoff to Ava, then back upstairs before anyone noticed. Rain pattered against the high windows, providing cover for quiet footsteps. The security camera's red light blinked steadily in its corner, but this was the one blind spot she'd identified, where the loading dock met the emergency stairwell. A distant door creaked. Sarah's pulse quickened as she recognized Ava's familiar gait. "Almost there! Almost!" The muffled thud came first, followed by a choked sound that died too quickly. Sarah rounded the corner at a run, but the corridor stretched empty before her. Only a dropped umbrella marked where Ava had been. "No!" Sarah whispered. "No, no, no!" She pressed herself against the wall, straining to hear movement, fighting the urge to call out. Nothing but the buzz of that damned fluorescent light and the drum of rain. Her hand trembled as she pulled out the sanitized phone, but before she could dial, heavy footsteps approached from the stairwell. Sarah retreated, taking the service elevator back to the penthouse level. Her stomach churned with dread. She'd done this. She'd brought Ava into danger's reach. The penthouse felt suffocating despite its spacious rooms. Lena was still watching movies with Rossi, thank God, oblivious to her mother's racing heart. Sarah paced the main room, jumping at every sound from the street below. At 7:17 p.m., tires screeched outside. A car door slammed. Something heavy, hit the pavement. Sarah rushed to the floor-to-ceiling windows. Through the thickening drizzle, she saw a dark shape crumpled on the curb. Security lights illuminated what she refused to accept. Ava's distinctive red coat, her dark hair spread like spilled ink on wet concrete. A gleaming object caught the light, a coin, placed with deliberate care on her lifeless tongue. "Ava!" The scream tore from Sarah's throat as she lunged toward the door. Strong arms caught her from behind. "Don't!" Dario commanded, but she fought against his grip. "Let me go! I have to! She's hurt! I have to help!" "She's gone." His voice was granite. He dragged her back from the window as she shook, rage and guilt warring in her chest. "They left a Bratva coin. This was a message." "They knew!" Sarah's voice cracked. "They knew about the meeting! How did they know?" Dario's jaw locked, muscles tensing. "Which means someone fed your movements to them." His eyes swept the room, reassessing every shadow. "Either we have a leak or they've tapped our systems." Sarah wrenched free of his hold, stumbling toward the balcony. The rain had picked up, soaking through her thin sweater, but she welcomed the cold. It matched the ice forming in her chest. Dario followed, shrugging off his suit jacket. He draped it over her shoulders, the weight settling like armor. The gesture should have felt possessive. Instead, it grounded her. Below, security teams swarmed the scene, efficient and practiced. They'd seen this before. They'd do this again. The realization hit Sarah like a physical blow. There was no walking away from this. Every exit led to a throat slit in an alley, a coin left as signature. "Your rules," she said through clenched teeth, hands gripping the balcony rail. "For now." Dario's phone buzzed. He answered with clipped commands, ordering doubled guards at every entry point. "Full forensic sweep of our systems before midnight. I want every line checked, every frequency scanned." His voice carried the promise of violence. "Someone betrayed our security. Find them." Rain dripped from Sarah's hair, mixing with tears she refused to acknowledge. Ava was dead because she'd tried to help, because Sarah had thought she could outsmart the Watchers, could maintain some fragment of control. Inside, Lena laughed at something on TV. The sound twisted in Sarah's chest like a knife. She'd almost orphaned her daughter with this stunt, almost delivered them both back to Victor's mercy. "We'll find who did this," Dario said quietly. His presence at her back radiated deadly intent. "They'll answer for it." "Answer how?" Sarah turned to face him. "With more death? More messages left on corpses?" "With justice." His eyes held hers, unflinching. "Your kind or mine, but they will answer." Security teams below began loading Ava's body into a discreet vehicle, professional, practiced, like erasing a mistake from a ledger. Sarah clutched Dario's jacket tighter, letting the expensive wool absorb her shudders. Through the glass walls, she watched Rossi lead Lena to the kitchen for dinner, their voices muffled by distance and rain. Her daughter was safe, laughing, protected, but the price of that protection grew steeper by the hour. "The sweep will take hours," Dario said. "Until then, assume nowhere is secure. No calls, no messages, no movement without direct oversight." Sarah nodded numbly. The fight had drained from her, replaced by cold certainty. She was trapped in this tower of glass and steel, bound by rules written in blood. But she'd play along, gather intel, map the networks, find the leak. And when the time came, she'd make sure Ava's death meant something. Whether through justice or vengeance, the debt would be paid. The city lights blurred through sheets of rain, hiding whatever eyes watched from the shadows. Somewhere out there, Victor's men were reporting their success. Somewhere, a traitor walked free. But here, in this moment, Sarah stood between dangers, the devil she knew and the one she'd chosen. Dario's jacket still warm around her shoulders, his presence both threat and shelter. The rain fell harder, washing away evidence below. Soon there would be nothing left to mark Ava's final moments but a wet patch of concrete and the hollow space she left behind. Dawn crept over Manhattan, painting the penthouse windows in shades of steel and gold. Sarah hadn't slept, her mind replaying Ava's death in endless loops. At 6:40 a.m., she found Dario in his office, suit jacket discarded, shirt sleeves rolled to expose corded forearms. Maps and documents covered his desk like battle plans. He looked up as she entered. "We need to discuss terms." "Terms?" Sarah's laugh held no humor. "I'm already your prisoner." "Guest." His correction was soft but firm. "And I'm offering a deal." She sank into the leather chair across from him, too exhausted to stand on principle. "I'm listening." I will dismantle Victor's entire operation, not just the immediate threat, all of it. The shipping routes, the shell companies, every safe house in contact. Dario's fingers drummed once on his desk. In exchange, you suspend publication and help us map the network. Sarah studied him, journalist instincts parsing truth from manipulation. You want me to bury the story? Temporarily. He met her gaze. Until Lena is safe. And my evidence? Remains yours. Once Victor's operation is ash, publish what you want. His lips curved slightly, though I suspect you'll have far more material by then. Before she could respond, Rossi appeared in the doorway. Sir, security sweep found vulnerabilities in the guest wing. Camera blind spots, potential access points through the service corridors. Dario's expression hardened. Options? Move them to your suite. It's the only space with comprehensive coverage and a secured radius. Sarah straightened. Absolutely not. The chaise in the adjoining room is comfortable, Dario said, as if she hadn't spoken. I'll take it. You're giving up your bed. I'm ensuring your safety. He turned to Rossi. Make it happen. Within an hour, Sarah's few belongings and Lena's backpack were transferred to Dario's suite. The space was masculine, but not austere. Dark woods, steel accents, and surprisingly comfortable furniture. A wall of windows offered a breathtaking view of the city, though Sarah noticed the glass was definitely bulletproof. They reconvened in Dario's war room, where a massive corkboard dominated one wall. Sarah pinned up everything she knew about Victor's operation, while Dario's men brought intel from the streets. String connected the pieces, shell companies laundering money through legitimate businesses, shipping manifests with suspicious gaps. Bratva-owned nightclubs serving as distribution points. The clubs are their weak point, Sarah said, tapping a photo. Too many witnesses, too much cash flow to hide completely. Dario nodded. My thoughts exactly. We start there, trace the money upstream. They worked through the morning, an unlikely partnership of journalist instinct and mafia muscle. Sarah found herself grudgingly impressed by Dario's strategic mind. He saw patterns in the chaos, potential pressure points where targeted strikes could bring down entire sections of Victor's empire. Lena drew pictures at a small table nearby, surprisingly content with colored pencils and paper. Occasionally she'd bring a drawing to show them, usually horses or dragons, sometimes with suspicious red splatters that made Sarah's heart ache. Around noon, food appeared without anyone seeming to order it. Sarah realized she was starving only when the smell of Italian cuisine hit her nose. Dario insisted they break to eat, watching until she finished her pasta. You're no good to anyone if you collapse, he said when she protested. The day blurred into strategy sessions and security briefings. Sarah's wall map grew more complex, red string spanning the city like blood vessels. By evening, they had identified 3 primary choke points in Victor's operation where coordinated strikes could do maximum damage. Night fell over Manhattan, the city lights creating their own constellation through the windows. Sarah put Lena to bed in the adjoining room, the little girl clutching Dario's jacket like a security blanket. She still refused to sleep without it. Sarah took the bed, though sleep proved elusive. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ava's body on the concrete. Around midnight, she heard Dario settle onto the chaise, his breathing evening out, but never quite reaching true sleep. At 2:11 a.m., a cry split the darkness. Dario bolted upright, gun appearing in his hand, before his eyes fully opened. But it wasn't an attack. It was his own nightmare that had woken him. He stood silently, muscles rigid, as he fought whatever demons haunted his dreams. His gaze swept the room, landing on Sarah and Lena's sleeping forms. Something in his expression softened fractionally. Instead of returning to the chaise, he moved closer to their bed. Not hovering, but positioning himself between them and the door. A guardian angel with blood on his hands. Sarah kept her breathing steady, feigning sleep. She watched through barely open eyes as Dario settled into the chair nearest the bed, close enough to react to any threat, but far enough to maintain propriety. The digital clock's red numbers cast a faint glow on his profile. 2:11 a.m. In the artificial twilight, his usual masks slipped just slightly. She saw exhaustion in the set of his shoulders, worry in the way his eyes kept returning to Lena's sleeping form. This dangerous man had killed without hesitation to protect them, had given up his bed, his privacy, his carefully maintained distance. Now he sat vigil while they slept, choosing proximity over pride. Sarah closed her eyes fully, allowing her breathing to deepen. Whatever came next, Victor's retaliation, the dismantling of the trafficking network, the eventual publication of her story, would wait for morning. For now, in this strange sanctuary of a mobster's bedroom, she felt oddly safe, The clock's numbers glowed steadily. 2:11 a.m. Outside, the city hummed with its eternal rhythm of sirens and traffic. Inside, 3 people orbited each other in an unlikely constellation of protection and need, while shadows gathered at the windows and danger lurked in the streets below. The phone's soft buzz cut through the quiet. Dario checked the encrypted message, his expression hardening. A captured courier was ready to talk at a secured location. He moved to where Sarah lay, half awake. "You wanted to understand what you're dealing with. Come with me." Sarah hesitated, glancing at Lena's sleeping form. "Rossi will stay," Dario assured her. "The suite is locked down." The elevator descended silently. Another guard took Rossi's place watching Lena, while Rossi himself slid behind the wheel of a black SUV. The city streets were empty at this hour, their headlights cutting through a fine mist. They pulled into a concrete garage in an industrial district. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across support pillars and empty parking spaces. In the center, a man sat zip-tied to a metal chair, his courier uniform stained with sweat. Dario's footsteps echoed as he approached. He moved with predatory grace, each step measured and deliberate. The courier's eyes widened in recognition. "The medical supply shipments," Dario said quietly. "Who handles the payments?" The courier's throat worked. "I don't." "Think carefully about your next words." Dario's voice remained eerily calm. "I only need information. How much this hurts depends entirely on you." Sarah watched from several feet away, her arms crossed tightly. Dario wasn't using excessive force, but his controlled menace filled the space like smoke. "Mikhail," the courier blurted. "Mikhail Petrov. He runs everything through Advanced Medical Solutions. The manifests are coded, medical supplies on paper, but the real cargo moves through after hours." One of Dario's men stepped forward, reaching for the courier's hand. "Should I help him remember any other details, boss?" "Wait!" Sarah moved before she could stop herself, her palm pressing against Dario's chest. "You have what you need. The rest is just cruelty." Dario went still under her touch. His eyes met hers, something electric passing between them. After a long moment, he nodded to his man. "Stand down. We're done here." The tension crackled as they walked back to the SUV. "You can't save everyone," Dario said low. "I'm not trying to save him." Sarah whirled to face him. "I'm trying to save you from becoming what they are." "You think I'm not already what they are?" "I think you're choosing not to be. Every time you show restraint. Every time you protect instead of destroy." The argument sparked between them, fear and attraction tangling until Sarah couldn't tell them apart. Dario backed her against one of the concrete pillars, his hands bracketing her head. "You see too much," he breathed. "Maybe you don't see enough." The kiss was inevitable, magnetic. His mouth claimed hers with carefully contained hunger. She matched his intensity, fingers curling in his shirt. Dario pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "Say yes," he whispered. "I need to hear it. Yes." The word fell like a surrender and a victory both. "Nothing happens without your consent," he promised. "You set the pace, the boundaries. Tell me to stop and I stop." She nodded, drawing him back down to her mouth. The kiss deepened, hands exploring with growing urgency. They barely made it to the SUV's back seat. Tinted windows and a privacy partition provided shelter as clothing was carefully removed. Every touch was preceded by whispered permission, every moan swallowed by hungry kisses. Dario's hands mapped her body with reverent attention. "Tell me what you need," he murmured against her throat. Sarah guided him, words becoming breathless gasps as they moved together. He was surprisingly gentle, checking in constantly, making sure each new sensation brought only pleasure. Afterward, he wrapped her in his suit jacket, cradling her close as aftershocks rippled through her body. "Are you all right?" he asked softly, pressing kisses to her temple. "More than all right," she assured him, tracing the scars on his chest. They dressed slowly, trading tender touches and lighter kisses. The drive back to the penthouse was quiet, filled with shared glances and intertwined fingers. Dawn was still hours away when they returned to the suite. Dario moved through the space with careful efficiency, placing a glass of water and a soft blanket beside Sarah's bed. He checked on Lena, gently brushing her dark hair from her face. Finally, he positioned himself in the space between their rooms, gun within easy reach on the nightstand. His posture was alert but relaxed. A protector, not a jailer. Sarah watched him through half-closed eyes, remembering the contrast between his dangerous grace in the garage and his tender attention in the car. He was a study in contradictions, lethal and gentle, commanding and considerate. The city lights painted patterns across the ceiling as she drifted towards sleep. For the first time since this started, she felt truly safe. Not because Dario was dangerous, but because he chose when not to be. The night wrapped around them like a cocoon. In the adjoining room, Lena slept peacefully, still clutching Dario's other jacket. Outside, danger lurked in the shadows of Manhattan's streets. But here, in this moment, they had carved out something precious and unexpected. Dario's steady breathing joined the quiet symphony of night sounds. His presence was both guard and comfort, a reminder that sometimes protection came in unexpected forms. The water glass caught the city's glow, the blanket was soft against Sarah's skin, and the gun on the nightstand gleamed dully, all pieces of the strange new reality where safety and danger danced an intimate waltz. Morning sunlight streamed through the penthouse windows, turning the kitchen into a gallery of gleaming surfaces. Dario moved with practiced grace between the espresso machine and marble counter, his shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal corded forearms. "Is there anything you're not annoyingly good at?" Sarah asked, watching him tamp the coffee grounds with precision. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Emotional availability, according to my therapist." "You have a therapist?" "Had, until Victor's people found him." Dario's jaw tightened as he pulled the first shot of espresso. The rich aroma filled the kitchen. Sarah accepted the tiny cup he offered, their fingers brushing. Last night's intimacy lingered between them like a shared secret. "The scar," she said softly. "You never finished telling me how you got it." Dario leaned against the counter, absently running his thumb over the raised mark on his forearm. "I was 13. My father ordered me to execute a rival's son, someone my age. I hesitated." His voice grew distant. "The boy escaped. My father made sure I learned the cost of mercy. There was a maid," he continued, pulling another shot of espresso. "Maria. She found me hiding in the wine cellar afterward, shaking from the beating. She cleaned my wounds, held me while I cried." His knuckles whitened around the cup. 3 days later, they found her body. My father said it was a message. Love gets people killed." Sarah touched his arm, feeling the tension in his muscles. "Love also saves people, keeps them human." "What about you?" Dario asked, clearly wanting to shift focus. "Lena's father. You never mention him." Sarah wrapped her hands around her cup, savoring its warmth. "Because I don't know who he is. It was a wake, 9 years ago. I was reporting on organized crime, covering the death of a major family's patriarch. The grief, the tension, everything felt heightened." She paused, remembering. "I had a panic attack in the bathroom. Someone gave me a pill. Anti-anxiety medication, they said. The next 12 hours are blank." Dario had gone very still, his espresso forgotten. 2 months later, I was pregnant. A man in an expensive suit showed up at my door with a check and NDAs. I refused both. She smiled faintly. "Best decision I ever made." 9 years ago, Dario repeated carefully. "Which wake?" "The Moretti patriarchs, your father's." The espresso cup clinked sharply against the counter as Dario set it down. "I left early that night. Panic attack. They gave me something. I don't remember getting home." Sarah's journalist instincts sparked to life. The timeline, the shared blackout, the way Lena's eyes sometimes caught the light exactly like Dario's. She watched him take a fresh glass from the cabinet, drink, set it down. "I should check on Lena," he said, voice carefully neutral. He left the kitchen, the glass sitting abandoned on the counter. Sarah waited until his footsteps faded before retrieving a small evidence bag from her pocket. She sealed the glass inside, careful to preserve any DNA traces. The morning stretched into afternoon. Lena curled up on the sofa with Rossi, completely absorbed in an animated movie. The bodyguard's usual stoic expression had softened as he explained the plot points she missed. Sarah used the distraction to slip into the study. Her hands were steady as she sealed the DNA swab into an overnight envelope, addressing it to Dr. Sarah Chen, a medical journalist who still owed her for keeping a source anonymous last year. The courier arrived exactly at 3:12 p.m., the pickup logged in the building's security system. Sarah watched the motorcycle disappear into traffic, carrying what might be the answer to a 9-year mystery. She found Dario in his office, poring over intelligence reports. He looked up when she entered, something vulnerable flickering behind his careful mask. "I requested a rush analysis," she said simply. "We'll know in 24 hours. He nodded once, shoulders tense. "Whatever the results, we'll handle it," she finished. Together. The afternoon light painted soft shadows across his face as he processed this. Here was a man who controlled every variable, faced with a possibility he'd never considered. A daughter he might have never known he had. A woman he'd met in darkness and found again in danger. "You could have run the test without telling me," he said finally. "We've had enough secrets." From the living room, Lena's laughter floated through the halls, bright, uncomplicated joy. Dario's expression softened at the sound. "She has your smile," Sarah said quietly. "I never knew why it felt so familiar until now." Dario's hand found hers, fingers intertwining. They stood together in the warm light, watching dust motes dance in the sunbeams, listening to their daughter's happiness echo through the penthouse that had become both fortress and home. Outside, the city carried on its endless rhythm. Somewhere, a lab technician was logging in a priority DNA test. Time ticked forward in measured beats, the movie's soundtrack, Rossi's low chuckle at Lena's commentary, the steady pulse where Dario's thumb traced circles on Sarah's wrist. The mystery of that long-ago wake hung between them, not a wait anymore, but a bridge connecting past to present. Whatever the results would reveal, they had already begun building something new. A family forged in danger, strengthened by truth, choosing love despite its costs. Sunlight caught the evidence envelope as the courier wove through traffic, carrying precious cargo that would unlock the final piece of their shared story. In 24 hours, they would know. For now, they had this moment. Quiet connection, tentative hope, and the sound of their daughter's laughter, painting joy across the afternoon air. The morning light painted Manhattan's skyscrapers in shades of pearl gray as Sarah adjusted Lena's backpack straps. Despite the armed escort, the small slice of normalcy, walking her daughter to school, felt precious. Dario stood nearby, his presence both reassuring and unsettling, dark coat collar turned up against the winter chill. "Remember your lunch?" Sarah asked, smoothing Lena's hair. "And my math homework," Lena nodded, clutching the straps of her unicorn backpack. "Mr. Rossi checked it." Rossi's normally stern face softened slightly at the mention. He maintained his vigilant scan of the street, while two other guards established a perimeter. The private school's limestone facade rose before them, just 1 block from the penthouse's secured zone. The first snowflakes began to drift down, catching in Lena's dark curls. She stuck out her tongue to catch one, and for a moment Sarah could pretend they were just another family on a winter morning. The screech of tires shattered the illusion, a black sedan cut across traffic, mounting the curb. 2 men in dark clothes erupted from the doors, weapons already raised. Time seemed to stretch like taffy. Then snap. "Down!" Dario's command cracked through the air as he moved with lethal grace, shoving Sarah and Lena behind him. His body became a shield of muscle and Kevlar-lined wool. The first shot cracked against the limestone, sending chips flying. Lena screamed, burying her face in Sarah's neck. Sarah curled around her daughter, feeling Dario's arm brace across them both. Rossi moved like a shadow, flanking the first shooter. His takedown was brutally efficient. A sweep of legs, a crack of bone, a gun skittering across wet pavement. The second attacker pivoted, weapon training on their huddled group. Dario's gun appeared as if conjured, aim steady despite the awkward angle of protecting them. The second shooter's finger tightened on the trigger. "Please don't!" Lena's plea cut through the chaos, her voice small but clear. Something shifted in Dario's stance, a microscopic adjustment. His shot took the man in the shoulder instead of the head, then the knee. The attacker collapsed, weapon falling useless as police sirens wailed in the distance. "Clear the scene," Dario ordered into his comm. His crew moved with practiced precision, collecting shell casings and wiping cameras. A security guard from the school hurried out, already reciting a carefully crafted story about a car backfiring. "Inside now," Dario guided them back toward the penthouse, his body still angled to shield them. Sarah felt his muscles coiled tight beneath his coat, ready to react to any further threat. Back in the penthouse's marble-floored sanctuary, Sarah's hands shook as she helped Lena change out of her snow-dampened clothes. The girl was quiet but steady, showing a resilience that made Sarah's heart ache. "You're very brave," Sarah whispered, pressing her forehead to Lena's. "Like you and Dario," Lena answered simply, then padded to her drawing table by the window. Sarah found Dario in his office, shrugging off his coat with a barely concealed wince. A graze along his upper arm had left a tear in his shirt, the fabric darkened with blood. "Sit," she ordered, retrieving the first aid kit she'd noticed earlier. He complied without argument, watching her with unreadable dark eyes as she cleaned the wound. "You could have killed him," she said quietly, applying antiseptic, "but you didn't." Lena was watching. His voice was rough. "She's seen enough violence." Sarah's hand stilled on his arm. Thank you. From the living room came the soft sounds of Lena humming as she drew, crayons scratching on paper. Dario's gaze drifted to the doorway, something vulnerable crossing his features. She's drawing again, Sarah explained, taping down a bandage. It helps her process. Dario stood, moving to lean against the doorframe. Sarah joined him, watching Lena work intently on her picture. 3 stick figures took shape on the page, tall ones on either side, a smaller one in the middle. A dog appeared next to them, all 4 stick legs planted firmly on green crayon grass. Something in Dario's expression shifted, softened, then hardened into resolution. His hand found Sarah's, fingers interlacing with quiet certainty. The church bells began to toll noon, their deep bronze notes floating through the winter air. Lena looked up from her drawing, face bright with creation. Look, she held up the paper. It's us, and a puppy maybe. Can we get a puppy? Sarah felt Dario's thumb brush across her knuckles, a gesture so gentle it made her throat tight. The snow continued to fall outside, coating the city in winter silence, while inside this glass fortress, something new and fragile was taking shape, like Lena's crayon family standing together against a blank white page. The lab results arrived with a soft ping at 1:17 p.m. Sarah's hands trembled as she opened the secure email on her sanitized phone. The clinical language blurred except for one stark line. Probability of paternity, 97%. She sank onto the chaise, mind reeling, the timeline, the wake, the blackout. It all aligned with devastating clarity. Dario was Lena's father. Their daughter had his eyes, his quiet intensity, even the way she tilted her head when thinking deeply. Sarah watched Lena coloring by the window, afternoon light catching her dark curls. This truth would change everything. They needed to handle it carefully, together, with Lena present. Tonight, she'd decided. After dinner, when things were calm. At precisely 4:30 p.m., every screen in the penthouse flickered to life. Sarah froze, watching grainy security footage fill the displays. Her stomach dropped as she recognized herself in a diner, filmed from above. The footage showed her accepting an envelope, but cut away before showing her immediately handing it to her editor. Evidence from a previous trafficking story. Dawn, Enzo's voice carried from the war room, tight with manufactured concern. You need to see this. Sarah's heart pounded as she hurried toward their voices. Enzo stood with his tablet, replaying the doctored clip that made the envelope look like a payoff. It's spreading across encrypted channels. Victor's people are claiming she's been feeding them intel. That's not... Sarah started, but the temperature in the room had already plummeted. Dario's expression hardened to marble. When was this filmed? Last month, according to metadata, Enzo supplied smoothly. Before the warehouse, but it's not what it looks like, Sarah interrupted. I can explain. You'll have time to explain. Dario's voice was terrifyingly calm. At a secure location, away from sensitive operations. A safe house is prudent, Enzo agreed. And limited access to Lena until we verify. No! Sarah's hands shook as she pulled up the DNA results. Dario, you need to see this first. It changes everything. But Enzo was faster, plucking the phone from her grip with practiced ease. We'll verify all evidence thoroughly. He slid the device toward Dario with a weighted look. Some things are too convenient to take at face value. Pack a bag, Dario ordered, not meeting her eyes. Rossi will escort you. Please, Sarah's voice cracked. Just look at the report. Lena is staying here, Dario cut her off. Where I know she's safe. The next hour passed in a blur of efficient brutality. Sarah was allowed 5 minutes to hug Lena, promising they'd sort everything out soon. Her daughter's tear-streaked face haunted her as Rossi led her to the waiting convoy at 5:42 p.m. The winter sky was already dark, city lights beginning to sparkle. They made it 3 blocks before everything went wrong. A garbage truck suddenly jackknifed across the street. The lead car slammed to a stop. Dark figures swarmed from the shadows, moving with insider precision. Contact front, Rossi shouted, but tasers were already crackling through the guard detail. The door beside Sarah wrenched open. Enzo's familiar cologne washed over her as he grabbed her arm, his carefully crafted mask finally slipping. Some thrones are built on mercy, he whispered, zip ties biting into her wrists. Mine on necessity. Understanding crashed through her. Enzo was the pipeline's true financier. Every leak, every ambush, every coincidence had been orchestrated from inside Dario's inner circle. He'll kill you for this, she spat. Enzo's smile was serpentine. He has to find me first. From 3 stories up, Lena's scream cut through the chaos. Sarah twisted to see her daughter on the penthouse balcony, small hands pressed against the glass as Victor's men shoved Sarah into a waiting van. The door slammed with brutal finality. Through the tinted windows, she watched the city lights flare to life, each one a mocking reminder of how completely Enzo had orchestrated her fall. The van lurched into motion. Sarah tested the zip ties, mind racing. The unicorn drive with their evidence was still hidden in the plant pot. Lena knew where to find it. If she could just get word to Dario about the DNA results, about Enzo's betrayal. She felt the weight of her backup phone, the cheap burner still tucked into her boot where the rushed search had missed it. Hope flickered, fragile but fierce. Enzo might have orchestrated this game, but he'd forgotten something crucial. She was a journalist who specialized in exposing trafficking networks, and now she was inside his operation. The van hit a pothole, throwing her against the metal wall. She heard Victor's accent from the front seat, discussing drop-off locations. Sarah closed her eyes, memorizing every turn, every sound. She'd survived worse odds than this. 3 blocks away, in the penthouse command center, Dario stared at, the diner footage playing on repeat, his hands left dense in the steel desk as rage and betrayal warred in his chest. The room had emptied, everyone knowing better than to witness a Don's pain. Only Lena remained, small face streaked with tears as she tugged his sleeve. "The flower pot," she hiccuped. "Mama said to check the flower pot if she went away." Dario looked down at his daughter, at her eyes so like his own, and something shifted in his universe. But that revelation would have to wait. Right now, he had a throne to burn and a queen to recover. The city spread below them, a glittering web of light and shadow. Somewhere in that maze, Sarah was waiting, and Dario Moretti had never been a man to leave what was his in enemy hands. The glass walls of the ops room shuddered as Dario stormed in at 6:03 p.m., his footsteps echoing like gunshots across the marble floor. Rossi burst through the door behind him, chest heaving. The convoy route, it was changed last minute. Enzo's authority. Rossi's face was ashen. He pulled rank, said it came from you. Dario's jaw locked as he rewound the diner surveillance footage frame by frame. The digital timestamp crawled backward. 2:15, 2:14. His eyes narrowed at the corner clock visible through the diner's window. 23 seconds. The loop repeated every 23 seconds. "It's doctored." His voice could have frozen hell. "Amateur work? Rushed job?" The soft pad of small feet made him turn. Lena stood in the doorway, face tear-streaked and red, clutching a folded paper and what looked like a lab report. Her lower lip trembled as she approached the massive steel desk. "Don't be mad at Mama," she whispered, placing both items down. "We're yours." Dario's hands were steady as he unfolded the note, but his breath caught at the DNA results. 99.7% probability. Father and daughter. The world tilted on its axis, then slammed back into brutal focus. His daughter. His. And Sarah had tried to tell him before Enzo. The rage that exploded through him was arctic in its clarity. He reached for his phone, fingers flying. "Judge Martinez, yes, it's urgent. I'm calling in that favor from the Garcia case." His voice was lethal silk. "I need emergency warrants for the Port Authority. Full access, no questions." He switched lines. "Rossi, broadcast to all assets. Victor Sokolov and the ghost financier are priority targets. 5 million each, dead or alive." His lip curled at Enzo's chosen code name. The snake had been signing his work for months. Turning to Lena, his daughter Christ, he knelt to her level. "I need you to go with Talia now. She'll take you somewhere safe until I bring your mama home." "Promise?" Her small fingers gripped his sleeve. "On my life." He pressed a kiss to her forehead, then nodded to Talia, who swept Lena toward the reinforced panic room. The next hour was controlled chaos. Dario deployed teams in expanding grids, cross-referencing property records against shell companies Enzo had used. His mind kept circling back to the stag sign Lena had mentioned during her escape, the Red Heart Bar. By 7:19 p.m., he was in a surveillance van, rolling through the Lower East Side, pieces clicking into place. There was an abandoned chapel, 3 blocks from the Red Heart, technically owned by a sound equipment company. Perfect cover for storing explosives. Perfect place to hide someone you wanted to disappear. The buildings loomed like shadowy sentinels as they crept down Essex Street. Dario checked his weapon, loaded a second magazine. His father's voice echoed in his head. Love makes you weak. But looking at that DNA report, at Lena's eyes so like his own, he knew better now. Love was why he would win this fight. Hold on, he whispered to the empty air, to Sarah wherever she was. The word held all the weight of a vow. The van's thermal imaging picked up heat signatures in the chapel's basement. Multiple bodies, one separate from the rest, likely bound. Dario's earpiece crackled with confirmation from his advance team. 2 guards at the side door, another on the roof. He studied the building's blueprint, marking exits and blind spots. The basement had 1 main stairwell and a defunct service elevator shaft. If Enzo followed his usual pattern, he'd have an escape route through the old utility tunnels that honeycomb this part of the city. Rossi's voice came through the comm. Sir, second team in position. We've got eyes on Victor entering through the vestry. Dario's fingers tightened on his gun. Any sign of our ghost? Negative. But we found something interesting. Weekly payments from that medical supply company to a shell corp that owns the chapel. Same pattern as the other laundering sites. Enzo's signature. Dario's smile was all teeth. He always did love his patterns. The thermal scan updated, showing more movement in the basement. A single figure pacing, gesturing. Dario recognized Victor's distinctive limp from the warehouse rescue. Sir, Rossi again, urgent now. Local patrol car just turned onto Essex, could spook them. Dario checked his watch. 7 minutes until the next patrol would pass. 7 minutes to get into position, breach the basement, and secure Sarah before Victor could react. Or before Enzo could spring whatever trap he'd laid. He thought of Lena in the panic room, of Sarah's attempted warning, of 9 years lost to his father's poison, about love being weakness. His hand found the DNA report in his pocket, now creased and soft from repeated handling. All teams, execute on my mark, he said into the comm. Primary target is the package. Get her clear first. Secondary targets are Victor and any intel about our ghost's location. He paused. And if you see Enzo, shoot to wound. He's mine. The van's interior was silent save for the soft hum of electronics and the muted sounds of weapons being checked one final time. Through the tinted windows, Dario watched shadows stretch across the chapels, weathered stones as evening deepened into true night. Somewhere in that basement, Sarah was waiting, his queen, the mother of his child, the woman who'd tried to protect him even as his world crashed down around them. The patrol car's headlights swept the street, then faded. Dario pressed his earpiece. All teams, status. The confirmations came in quick succession. Team 1 ready. Team 2 in position. Roof team set. Dario took one last look at the thermal scan, at the solitary heat signature that had to be Sarah. Then he moved toward the van's door, every motion liquid grace and lethal promise. Time to burn his father's crown and build something new from the ashes. 7:42 p.m. The chapel's basement air hung thick with dust and diesel fumes. Sarah's wrists burned against the zip ties, binding her to the stone column, but she kept her breathing steady, focused on the rhythmic blink of LED lights, dotting the explosive vests strapped to wooden pews. 6 vests, 3-second intervals, enough firepower to level the block. She'd managed to work a rosary from her pocket earlier, palming the modified bead with its hidden microphone. Now she just had to keep them talking, keep them distracted while help came. If it came. That limp's getting worse, she called to Victor, who paced the shadows near the altar. Guess Dario's men tagged you good at the warehouse. Victor spun, face twisted. Shut your mouth, or what? You'll kill me. That's the plan anyway. She forced a laugh, watching him grip his injured leg. Every burst of temper made him sloppier, more predictable. Enzo emerged from the vestry, elegant even in the gloom. Now, Victor. Let's be civilized. His smile never reached his eyes. Ms. Vale deserves to understand why she's here. Because I got too close to your trafficking operation? Because you got too close to Dario. Enzo straightened his cuffs. He was meant to be a figurehead, controlled, isolated, following his father's vision. Then you made him think he could choose something else. Sarah worked the hairpin against the battery pack near her hip, feeling for the loose connection. His father's vision? You mean bleeding the syndicate dry? Building a stronger empire, Enzo corrected. The old Don knew mercy was weakness. He promised me the throne if I could prove it. He gestured to the explosives. Tonight, I create chaos. Tomorrow, I emerge as the only one who can restore order. A muffled thud echoed from above, barely audible, but Enzo's head snapped toward the sound. Sarah raised her voice. By killing innocent people? That's your grand vision? By burning away the rot. Enzo checked his phone, frowning. Starting with Dario's distractions. Glass shattered overhead. Gunfire erupted, sharp and close. Victor scrambled for cover as black-clad figures rappelled through broken windows. Sarah twisted harder against the zip ties, feeling plastic bite into flesh. Dario moved like a shadow through the chaos, efficient and lethal. He took down one of Victor's men, disarmed the nearest explosive vest, then caught a bullet graze to his shoulder. Blood darkened his shirt, but his aim never wavered. Sarah's fingers found the battery connection just as Victor charged from behind a pillar, knife extended. "Dario!" she screamed. Dario spun, saw Victor's blade, saw Sarah still bound. Choice crystallized in his eyes: eliminate the threat or protect what was his. He dove for Sarah instead, shielding her body with his own as Victor's knife slashed air. "Take him alive!" Dario ordered as his men surrounded Enzo. "Public confession, full broadcast!" He sliced through Sarah's restraints, lifted her against his chest. "Hold tight!" They burst onto the street at 8:11 p.m., cold air sharp in Sarah's lungs. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Dario's coat settled warm around her shoulders as Enzo was marched to a waiting van, hands cuffed, a camera rig visible inside. "You're mine to protect," Dario murmured against her temple, lips brushing skin. "Always." His phone appeared in his hand. One word to her most trusted contact. "Stream." Sarah leaned into his solid warmth, watching Enzo disappear into the van. The night air tasted like gunpowder and promise. Around them, Dario's men secured the scene with practiced efficiency, collecting shell casings, redirecting foot traffic, establishing clean sightlines in case of secondary attacks. Red and blue lights painted the wet streets as police cruisers approached. A medic hurried over to check Dario's shoulder wound, but he waved them toward Sarah first. She submitted to the examination, letting them clean the rope burns on her wrists while maintaining visual contact with Dario. He stood like a sentinel between her and the chaos, phone to his ear as he coordinated containment. His free hand never left her shoulder, thumb brushing slow circles against her coat-covered skin. The touch anchored her, kept the adrenaline crash at bay. More of Dario's people arrived in waves, cleanup crews in maintenance uniforms, plainclothes officers who would ensure the official report matched their version of events, tech specialists to handle the camera feed that would broadcast Enzo's confession. Through it all, Sarah watched Dario command his world with measured grace, far removed from the cold efficiency his father had demanded. This was a man who chose protection over vengeance, who risked his life to spare his child from witnessing death, who built his strength from love rather than fear. The van's engine turned over, headlights cutting through the gathering dark. Inside, Enzo sat flanked by guards, his elegant facade finally cracking. The man who had orchestrated so much pain would now face the consequences of his actions. Not in shadow, but in the full light of public scrutiny. Dario's phone buzzed. Confirmation that Sarah's journalist contact was standing by to receive the stream. Justice would come not through violence, but through truth. Through the very exposure Enzo had tried to prevent. An SUV pulled up, ready to take them home to Lena, to their future. Sarah felt Dario's arm tighten around her waist as they watched the van pull away, carrying Enzo toward his reckoning. The sirens faded into the distance, leaving only the soft sounds of the city night. The crisis wasn't fully over. There would be statements to make, evidence to process, wounds to heal. But in this moment, standing in the shelter of Dario's embrace, while justice took its course, Sarah knew they had already won the most important battle. They had chosen love over fear, truth over power, protection over vengeance. The city sparkled like scattered diamonds beyond the heat-lamped garden. At 9 p.m., tablets glowed across the penthouse terrace as Enzo's confession streamed live. His once smooth facade had crumbled, replaced by desperate truth-telling as he detailed every dark corner of the trafficking pipeline. The video was doctored, Enzo admitted, his voice thin and reedy. "We manipulated footage to frame Serafina Vale, the diner clock, watch it loop every 23 seconds. He went on to describe the elder Moretti's promises, his own toxic ambitions, the lives he'd destroyed in pursuit of power. Sarah stood at the garden's edge, Lena's hand warm in hers, as Rossi approached with updates. Victor's been extracted via diplomatic channels. He's facing charges in 3 countries. He passed Dario a tablet displaying frozen accounts, seized properties, a network crumbling in real time. The pipeline's dry. One by one, Dario's lieutenants filed onto the terrace. Some came with shoulders squared and heads high, others with uncertainty in their stance. Each had to choose, swear loyalty to Dario's new vision or walk away clean. "The old ways die tonight," Dario announced, his voice carrying across the garden. "We're converting our operations to legitimate enterprises, run by people with clean hands and clear consciences." His gaze swept the assembled crowd. This change began the moment a little girl knocked on my door asking for protection. She reminded me what really matters. Murmurs rippled through the gathering. Some nodded in approval, others shifted uneasily. But no one challenged him. They'd all seen what happened to those who did. Dario turned away from his lieutenants, kneeling before Lena. His movements were gentle, almost hesitant, so different from the lethal grace he showed in combat. "Lena," he said softly, "I know I wasn't there before, but I want to be here now. May I be your father?" Tears spilled down Lena's cheeks as she nodded, throwing her arms around his neck. Dario held her close, his own eyes suspiciously bright. When he finally stood, he kept one hand on Lena's shoulder as he faced Sarah. The ring he produced caught the garden lights, but Sarah barely saw it. She was focused on his face, the vulnerability there, the hope and fear warring in his expression. "You were my sin," he said, voice rough with emotion. "The one night I broke, the one time I let myself feel something real. Now you're my absolution." He took her hand, thumb brushing over her knuckles. "You're mine, forever, if you choose me." Sarah felt tears threatening but held them back. This was too important for clouded vision. "I choose you," she said clearly, "but I have conditions." A smile tugged at Dario's mouth. "Name them." "Complete transparency between us. No more secrets." She squeezed his hand. "Safety for Lena above all else. And I publish the trafficking story once the victims are protected and relocated." "Done," Dario agreed without hesitation, loud enough for everyone to hear. "All of it." The next 2 days passed in a whirlwind of paperwork and preparations. They spent the morning of their wedding signing protection orders and relocation documents, ensuring every trafficking victim had a safe path forward. Sarah's hands cramped from initialing papers, but she didn't complain. Each signature meant another life saved. At 4:36 p.m., they stood before a judge in the courthouse. Lena held a small bouquet of white roses, beaming as she watched her parents exchange vows. The ceremony was brief but meaningful, with promises of protection, partnership, and unconditional love. That evening found them in the penthouse kitchen, surrounded by takeout containers from their favorite Italian restaurant. Soft music played from hidden speakers as Dario pulled Sarah into a slow dance. His hand spanned her lower back, keeping her close as they swayed. "Time for bed," Lena announced, though her smile suggested she had ulterior motives. "Let me guess," Dario said dryly. "You want a story?" Lena nodded eagerly. "The one where the monster learns to love. It's my favorite now." Sarah laughed softly against Dario's chest. "I wonder why." They moved to Lena's room together, settling into what had become their nightly routine. Dario sat on the edge of the bed, Sarah curled in the nearby chair as Lena snuggled under her covers. "Once upon a time," Dario began, his accent thickening, as it always did when he was emotional, "there was a man who thought love made him weak." Sarah watched them, her daughter and her husband, the family she never expected to find. Outside, the city hummed with its usual energy, but in here, wrapped in warmth and security, nothing could touch them. The door was locked, the security system armed. Guards patrolled the perimeter, vetted and loyal to Dario's new vision. But more importantly, they were protected by something stronger than walls or weapons, their love for each other, tested by fire and proven unbreakable. The kingdom outside knew exactly who they belonged to now, not to separate powers or competing forces, but to each other, forever.